gonna intro the video and then I'm gonna have a special guest and you'd be like, yeah, Matthew's
No. Just say I'm here with my sister.
Oh my god.
Don't do all that for me.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I have a special guest. I have my sister Chloe, and today we're gonna be making
cheese rolls.
So this is one of the most requested pastry dishes that I've gotten on this channel ever since I started it, and now we're finally getting around to sharing it with you guys. So Chloe and I are gonna put it together. It's really quick, really simple, and we hope you guys enjoy it.
So to make our crust, we're gonna use flour, some salt, some grated butter, some shortening, and ice water.
And today we're using unsalted butter, but by all means, if you had the salted butter sticks, you could use that. But if you're using salted butter, you're gonna wanna omit the salt. And we're using regular all-purpose flour for this today.
In a large bowl with flour, I'm gonna add in my salt, and Matthew's gonna add in my grated butter.
And grating the butter helps when you're making things like this because it allows the butter to get more evenly distributed than if you were to just add in chunks of the butter.
Now we're gonna add in the shortening.
And remember, all of the ingredients that you're using to make this crust, they should be very cold, so this way you can get a very flaky pastry crust. If not, it's gonna be dense and it's gonna be hard.
So I'm using my
pastry cutter.
I'm just working in my butter and shortening, and you wanna keep working it in until you get a sort of crumbly, sandy texture.
And by all means, if you guys did not have a pastry cutter, you could use your fingers, but just be careful as you're working it in with your fingers because the more you work in the butter and warm it up, the less crumbly that the pastry will get. So try to invest in one of these. I'll have them in the description box below. I'll have an Amazon link for it so you guys can purchase one if you wanted to.
So after I get my sandy texture with the crust, I'm gonna go in with clean hands and use some water, ice cold water, and stream it in order to get a nice soft dough.
So I'll add it in for her so this way she can start to gauge how much to put in. Remember, every type of flour is going to absorb it differently, so you're going to use a different amount of water just depending on the brand of flour you're using and your climate. I would estimate that we use about half a cup to maybe 3/4 a cup of water every time we make this dough, but it'll depend. So just go ahead and keep streaming it in a little bit at a time until you don't see any more dry flour and it comes together. Remember, we're not kneading this because if you knead it, then that butter and the shortening is going to melt and it's not going to be flaky anymore. It's going to be hard and it's going to be dense. Just a little tip for you guys, as you're mixing it, you want to make sure to use more so your fingertips. In the beginning, it's okay if you're grabbing everything with your whole hand, but towards the end, to work everything in properly, use your fingertips, just so this way we're not warming up the butter too much.
So after I'm done mixing my dough, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this dough and basically rip it into two batches. And then after I form those, I'm going to use some plastic wrap and wrap them and then just put them in the fridge. And
the only reason we're putting them in the fridge is so this way we can work on the cheese mixture and these will stay nice and cold and they won't start to melt with the butter or anything like that. So you just want to wrap it up. You could form it up a little bit, pat it down, and you stick it in the fridge. So before I wrap up the second dough ball, I just wanted to show you guys the texture of the dough. As you guys can see, it's a pretty soft dough from the way that I'm touching it. It's not sticking to my fingers, and you can definitely feel all the butter and the shortening running through, but you don't want it to be super crumbly, nor do you want it to be too sticky. So we're gonna keep on putting them into the plastic wrap, pop them in the fridge, and we're gonna work on the cheese mixture now. Alright guys, so at this point, since the pastry is done and that's in the fridge and ready to go, we're going to work on the cheese mixture. So in my bowl, I have some sharp cheddar cheese. You can use whatever type of cheese you want. I know some people will use a lighter version of the cheddar, but this is what I have on hand today and it'll work. I'll show you guys how it looks in the end and you'll see and determine if you want to use this kind of cheese or not. So at this point, Chloe's going to add in the other flavorings that go into the cheese rolls.
So I'm just going to add in some salt.
And the salt is totally dependent on your cheese. If you have a very, very salty type of cheese, then you can go ahead and not use any salt. You could use more or you could use less. So go ahead and gauge it as per your taste.
I'm also going to throw in some garlic powder. And then I'm going to take my pepper. You could also use fresh pepper as well.
So we're using homemade pepper sauce today, but by all means, if you have the fresh pepper and you want to use it, go ahead and do so. I like the pepper sauce just because it has a little bit of salt in it, has a little bit of vinegar to give it a nice flavor, and I also find that it's just a little bit spicier because those peppers have been marinating for a long time.
And now I'm gonna finally put in my mustard.
And we're just using regular plain yellow mustard today, nothing fancy at all. So after Chloe's added in all of those things, I'm just gonna go ahead and mix them up really well. And being very honest, I'm gonna put all of my measurements in the description box down below. But cheese rolls and a lot of the other Guyanese pastries, they really work off of taste. So once you mix everything in really well, you're going to give it a taste, see if you're happy with everything. And if you are, you can move forward. If you're not, then you can keep on adding some of the other ingredients until you get your desired taste. So I'm going to keep on mixing, give it a taste, and I'll let you guys know what I think. So once you finish mixing all of the ingredients into the cheese mixture, you're going to want to give it a taste like I said before. And after we tasted it, we decided we need a little bit more pepper. So we added that in, we adjusted that, and we think it's perfect now. So we're going to start to roll out our dough and make the cheese rolls. Our oven is preheating to 350 degrees while we do all of that. Alright guys, so after we finished mixing the cheese mixture, it's been about 15 minutes since we had first put the dough balls in the fridge just to chill a little bit. So we pulled one of the dough balls out, we left the other one in so it could stay chilled while we work on one batch. And what I did was I split one of the dough balls in half to start working with. The reason being is because my board is a little bit small. If you have a large surface or you're rolling on your countertop, by all means you can roll out one big dough ball at a time. But we're just going to work in very small batches just because it's easier for me and Chloe to do at this point. So we have one of the pieces of dough that we broke off. And I'm adding on a little bit of flour. So Chloe's going to dust both sides now with it. And once you get a little bit of flour on, you're going to begin to roll it out. For cheese rolls, you don't want it to be too thin, nor do you want it to be too thick. We like a good ratio of cheese to dough, but by all means, if you want to have more dough or less dough, just depending on your preferences, go ahead and do it as per that. So we're going to roll it out to maybe about a quarter of an inch thick. So Chloe and I got our desired thickness. Again, I said about a quarter of an inch, but you make it as thin or as thick as you want. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and clean up the edges just a little bit. So we're not going to get a perfect square, but we want to get more of a square shape. So Chloe's just going to start to cut it very slightly just to get any of those big rounded edges off. And once you take off the excess pieces of dough, just set it aside and you can go ahead and put it in your next batch of dough to roll out with everything. So once you get all of the edges cleaned up a little bit, you're going to start to cut them into squares. We're going to do 4 squares because that's how even our dough is going to end up being. Remember, we're going to be making cheese rolls more on the smaller scale today, but if you want to make them much larger, you can do so. Alright guys, so we took one of these squares of dough that we just made, and at this point I'm going to spoon on a little bit of the cheese mixture, and Chloe's going to go ahead and spread it out onto the piece of dough. And I'm only using about a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of the filling. Remember, if you add in too much, it will leak out and they will explode in the oven, so you definitely don't want that. So go ahead and keep on spreading it out till you get close enough to the edges, but not all the way to the edge, or else the cheese will leak out again. So once you get all of your cheese on, you're going to go ahead and fold it up. So we're going to fold it like a tri-fold shape almost, just so we can get a few layers on the inside. So Chloe's going to fold it really carefully. And once you get it folded up into that tri-fold shape, what you're going to do is take a fork and you're going to go ahead and crimp the edges now really well. You want to crimp them so this way none of that cheese falls out. And if the fork sticks a little bit, that's okay. You can also dip it in a little bit of dry flour if you wanted to help with the sticking. And if you heard that beeping just now, that was our oven. It just came up to temperature. Remember, that's at 350 degrees to bake these at. So I just wanted to let you guys know that once you flip over the cheese roll onto the next side, you're going to see that there's a long seam that needs to be sealed up a little bit. So Chloe's just going to pinch together the sides a bit so this way none of that cheese comes falling out in the oven. There's quite a few precautions you have to take when you're making cheese rolls, and these are a few of them because you definitely don't want that cheese falling out in the oven and making a mess. And what Chloe's going to do as well now, she's also going to crimp this side so this way it also seals it from this side too. So we just wanted to show you guys how to fill another one. Remember, you're just taking about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of your filling. You're going to spread it out carefully, mostly to the edges. Remember, you leave a little bit of a border so this way it does not ooze out or leak out in the oven. And once you get it all spread out and you get your desired amount of filling on the inside, you're going to do a little tri-fold to go ahead and get those layers on the inside. So once Chloe's finished spreading it out, she'll show you guys how to fold it out. So as we said before, you're going to do a tri-fold. Get one side folded, fold it onto itself one more time. And once you do that, you're going to go ahead and crimp the edges. Remember, if you dip your fork in a little bit of flour, it helps. So crimp the edges really well, so this way it's nice and sealed in. And another trick I wanted to share with you guys is that if you guys see there's a lot of loose pastry on the edges, so what Chloe's gonna do is take the pizza cutter and she's gonna slice off just a little bit from the edges just to clean it up a bit. And by doing that, it actually also helps to seal it up a little bit too, because it brings both edges of the pastry together. Alright, so once you finish crimping that first edge, you're gonna go ahead and flip it over. And just to give you guys a better look, you're gonna see that we have that long seam going along the edges. Now that seam, as I said before, you need to close it up really well. So Chloe's just pinching it down onto the other side of the piece of dough, so this way none of the cheese filling will roll out. And just as we did on the other side, we're gonna crimp it once again because you wanna seal it from this side as well. Trust me, if you guys seal them from both sides and make sure you take these precautions, your cheese rolls will not ooze and become such a mess in the oven. Alright everyone, so we finished forming one batch of the cheese rolls. So Chloe's gonna start to brush them with an egg wash that we made. So basically in the bowl we beat one egg with a few tablespoons of water, and we also added in a little bit of yellow food coloring just to give that really traditional yellow shine on the top. By all means, if you don't have food coloring or don't like using it, you don't have to put it in. And if you don't want to use an egg, what you can do is use a little bit of milk, or you could also brush on a little bit of water. Just know that if you do the milk or water to make it eggless, it will not be as crispy on the outside. So we're going to continue brushing them really well, and then we'll show you what to do next. Once you finish getting the egg wash over all of the cheese rolls, you're going to go ahead and pierce it with a fork. So we're going to do about 3 little pierce marks. We just do this so this way it can be vented, and this way none of the cheese bursts out, because if you don't vent it, what happens is it will puff up on the inside, they'll burst, and then of course the cheese will be everywhere. So go ahead and take this precaution and do that. So once we finish poking it with the fork, we're going to stick them in the oven at 350 degrees and leave them there for about 20 to 30 minutes, just depending on how long they take to get a nice golden brown color all over and cook through in the middle. Alright everyone, so we pulled the first batch of cheese rolls out of the oven. As you guys can see, none of them opened up except for this one. So it's probably just an issue with the closing process. So just make sure you close them really well and try your best to seal up all of the edges so they don't pop out like this. It also helps to do those fork marks so this way they don't pop out like that as well. But I baked these for about 25 minutes. They're still pretty hot, but I just wanted to show you what the bottoms look like. They're nice, they're crispy, and if you guys listen in very closely, you're probably not going to be able to hear it on camera, but they're like sizzling on the inside a little bit because they're still hot from that bubbling cheese. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take them off the tray, I'm going to allow them to cool about midway through, and then we can go ahead and break into them and try them. So this is from the first batch of the cheese rolls, and they cool down for about 10 minutes at this point. And as soon as they're a little warm to the touch and not bubbling on the inside anymore, that's your indication you can go in and you can serve them. I prefer my cheese rolls a little warm. Some people like them cold, some people like them room temperature. Go ahead and eat them whatever way that you want. They're going to be really delicious either way. So I'm going to grab one of them and I'm going to break into it and show you guys what it looks like on the inside. So this right here honestly looks super heavenly. There's a whole bunch of cheese running throughout. As you saw when I broke it apart, it was a nice stringy piece of cheese coming out because it was nice and warm still. And as you guys can see, my pastry is nice and thin and flaky. When you go to a lot of these West Indian bakeries, the pastry is very dense, it's very buttery, and just too greasy in my opinion. So this is exactly how my family likes it, nice and thin, nice and flaky, lots of cheese, and this is going to be perfect. Alright guys, so we pulled out the last batch of the cheese rolls, we allowed them to cool for a little bit, and now Chloe and I are going to give it a try for you guys. So again, just wanted to let you guys see what it looks like in the middle. Nice and flaky and thin, and we're going to go ahead and give it a try now.
It's good.
This is exactly what a cheese roll should be. I find the ones that they sell at the West Indian stores are too thick now, too salty in the middle, not enough pepper and flavor. These are just perfect, so go ahead and give them a try. We hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you to Chloe for helping me put these together. And again, if you are not subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe. Give this video a nice big thumbs up. And what else can I do?
Oh, turn on the bell icon.
Click that little bell notification icon. You'll be notified every time I post my newest videos. And leave all of your beautiful comments down below. Let me know what you guys would like to make next. So I'll see you guys very soon. We're going to finish off these cheese rolls.
Bye.